Alright, so today I'm going to be tying the Superior X, and basically this got its name from being used on the for basically Lake Superior steelhead, mainly the North Shore rivers of Minnesota or the Brule River of Wisconsin on the South Shore of Lake Superior. Just a general nymph, beadhead nymph pattern. The chickaboo, the grizzly chickaboo tail gives it quite a bit of movement. The copper bead and the copper wire give it a little bit of flash. And then there's also some orange fleck in the rubber legs and some tinsel in the brown Kaufman stonefly dubbing. So all those kind of create a little bit of flash in the water, movement. Just an all-around popular fly. You'll see it in the reports or the forums quite a bit for Lake Superior steelhead. So I figured I'd stay really true to the pattern and show you guys how it's tied. So I'll get to it. So I'm going to be tying this one on a size 10 Kamagatsu, and that is this hook right here. Just a down eye nymph hook. Tighten this up just a little bit. Okay, and the bead I have on there is just a Spirit River 1/8 inch copper bead. Seems to be a good size for this size of hook. And then the thread that I'm going to be using here is the UTC 140 in a rusty brown. It's a thread I use for quite a few patterns. So basically you're just going to start your thread, wrap it back to the barb of the hook, or abouts there. Clip off your excess. For the tail, I'm just going to be using this brown chickaboo. A single feather will do it. You can either get it on a patch. This is, if you're lucky enough to find it, this is J. Fair's. Quite a few feathers on one of these patches. Otherwise you can buy it in these loose bags. These aren't quite as desirable as the patches. The patches they're pretty much all going to be the marabou fibers. With these bulk bags, you're going to get a lot of getting into like the more schlappen feathers, so they won't have the marabou ends like that. They'll kind of end in like a schlappen feather, that kind of thing. So, but so basically, you're just going to want to tie in a tail about the length of the hook shank. Just a couple wraps. That one's just a little long, so what I'm going to do is just hold my thread and then pull on this slightly. That should shorten it up a bit. Make sure it's on top of the hook. Then you can wrap forward, cinching it down. And what I like to do is just trim this a little bit short of the bead head. Alright. Then you can go ahead and cinch down the rest of the marabou fibers. And I've explained it in other videos, but basically that chickaboo, it's marabou fiber that comes from chicken, hence the name chickaboo. Just a nice webby fiber. And I really like that grizzly color. It just kind of adds a little bit, I think. You get the black barring in there, so it kind of makes it look a little mottled. So the next thing we're going to do is just tie in our ribbing. Just kind of catch in the end there. Wrap forward, catch that in on the top of the shank. Then wrap back. Okay. So the next thing we're going to want to do is take our Kaufman brown stonefly dubbing, and basically this is just a brown dubbing. It has a A lot of really nice natural fibers in there, some coarser guard hairs, and then it's got like these little fine tinsel fibers that are multiple colors, anything from yellow, gold, red, blue, purple. Let's take out some of that. We're just going to basically want to make a carrot-shaped abdomen on there. About maybe a little less than 2/3 of the hook shank. So I'll start off with that right there. Maybe a little bit too much, we'll see. Right. So just as you wrap that forward, you can kind of come back on it. I'm going to need a little bit more. And that's how I like to build up my carrot-shaped bodies. And if you put your dubbing on nice and thin, it's kind of easier to control the shape of the abdomen. Bring that up here. And if you end up having a little bit too much, you can just kind of pull it away. Alright. Now the next thing we want to do is just wrap our ribbing forward. And you want to try to maybe get about 5 wraps on there maybe. Doesn't need to be perfect. Alright, and what I like to do is I like to cross my thread, put a 90-degree bend in the wire. That just helps really secure it down. Lash it down with a couple more wraps, and then what you can do is take and hold your thread, wiggle your wire, break it off, and that kind of prevents any bumps there that might kind of make tying the rest of the fly a little tougher. And by the way, that wire was just the UTC Ultra. This is the fine copper wire. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is tie in my legs. And if you're tying this pattern true to how it was originally tied, you're going to use a brown leg with gold fleck in it, or glitter, whatever you want to call it. And then, so these are basically just the hairline dubbing, crazy legs, brown, orange flake. So you're going to want to pull off one of the legs, double it up, cut it in half. That'll be plenty for each side. Alright, so you got about 1/3 of the hook shank left, go about in the middle of that. And then I like to wrap the legs over the thread, bring it up to the side. Just take a couple of wraps. I'm just going to move that back here just a little bit. Okay, and then you can kind of position it how you want it. The second leg, I usually just let my thread hang. I bring that up and around, and usually the thread weight is enough to hold it on there for me. Just grab it, and then do another couple wraps. Now bring your thread here to the back of the legs, and now you're going to dub your thorax, or yes, your thorax. So get some more of your brown Kaufman dubbing here. And here's what we got so far. You just got the legs sitting on either side of the hook shank. And now here's going to be where you can kind of control how flared out the legs are and whatnot. So as we wrap this this dubbing here in and amongst the the rubber legs. So you're just going to want to take and do a few wraps of this dubbing behind the legs. You just kind of got to get the legs to work for you. And then you're going to want to come to the middle. And I'm going to end up needing a bit more of this dubbing. With the camera in my way, I can't put on quite as much as what I usually would. Otherwise, I end up smacking the camera. Okay, so I'm going to need more. You just basically want to build up a decent thorax. And you don't have to, I mean, you can put the dubbing on kind of loose. If you got some of those fibers hanging out, that's just fine. Basically, it'll just kind of add to the bugginess of the fly. So just kind of build that up in there. And then with just a little bit of dubbing left, you're going to want to come sweep back those front legs and then just do a wrap or two right in front until you don't have any more dubbing left. And that basically builds it up just a little bit in front of the legs. If you build it up too much, you can end up with these legs pointing back. You just want to do a couple wraps. And so now we're basically ready to can trim the legs first off. And what I like to do is just trim them off about the back ones first, and I'll go to just a little bit shorter than the tail. And once I get the back one, I can kind of take and use this one to measure the front one, and then I can use this front one to measure off the other front one, and then I'll just trim this a little bit shorter than the tail like the other one. So there's your X legs pattern. So for flies like this where my thread is kind of buried in between a bead and a bunch of dubbing, I don't like to whip finish and then try to head cement, just because a lot of times you'll get a lot of your head cement in the dubbing. I just don't like to do that. It'll kind of crust on your dubbing ball there. So what I like to do is let out some thread. And what I'll do is I'll take and actually apply the head cement. Just get a bead there going. Apply it to the thread itself. And with this waxed nylon thread, I mean, kind of be patient with it. The head cement doesn't always like to stick to it, but eventually you'll get enough on there. Alright. Go right into my whip finish here. And then just get 3 to 4 wraps on there. Should be plenty. Alright, and that small amount of head cement should be enough to hold. Those thread wraps are kind of buried there in between the bead head and the dubbing ball. And so that's basically it. Like I said, very common fly you'll see on reports and forums for Lake Superior steelhead. Just a good all-around nymph pattern. So I hope you enjoy this pattern. And hope it catches you fish.